Good morning. I'm glad we're all
Here that they said that we're going to have 11, so about 20 of you have to leave. Anyway, welcome to the Guaranty seminar. My name is Dan. Not quite sure what I do here anymore, but that is Dave Taylor. He is our illustrious #1 service manager at the main building. And welcome. We do this once a month. We're not trying to sell you anything. We are here to give you information. We've got a lot of return people, and I thank you for that. She got me already this morning. I got a question I've never had, and I'm not quite sure how to answer, but I will figure it out. The whole point of this is to give you information. If you have questions, please shout, yell, kick, let us know, and this all is driven by what you want to know. Last time we did a RV 101. This time we're going to be doing a accessory seminar, so it's all again driven by what your interests are. I'm going to start out with talking about batteries, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dave. I'm more of a book-educated guy. He's a hands-on service manager. He's done it, been there, seen it. So he's coming from the reality end of life. So having said that, I'd like to start off with batteries. Every coach made is driven by a 12-volt electrical system. Doesn't matter what you've got to have batteries to make it work. There are several types of batteries on the market, and we are moving rather pointedly towards the absorbed glass mat battery. The AGM batteries are about twice as much as a flooded cell battery, but they last 2 to 3 times as long. They make them both in a deep cycle and a starting battery. A starting battery has a lot of thin plates, large surface area, so it can do a rapid discharge, a lot of current over a short period of time, and then be recharged fairly rapidly. They do not do well in a deep cycling environment. The plates will fall apart, then you're not able to recharge the battery. A deep cycle battery is just the opposite. It is a few cells thick, like me. They are designed for long-term discharge, and even when fully discharged, they're capable of recharging, which we're basically electroplating the lead back onto the plate, and we're coming from lead sulfate to lead. Deep cycle batteries designed just for deep cycling do not start well. They cannot discharge rapidly like a starting battery. They can take quite a bit of abuse. A flooded cell, a wet cell battery, typically like this is a 6-volt. This battery will discharge and recharge, that's a duty cycle, on an average of 350 times. A 12-volt flooded cell battery isn't going to do quite as well as the 6 volts. The 6 volts are the best battery for deep cycling. They don't have the capacity, they won't last as long. Their duty cycles is around 200, a little over that. So the 6-volt is by far the better battery. The best battery is the AGM, and we have this one in a 12-volt. We're out of the 6 volts. We've been going like crazy with them. But the absorbed glass mat, basically you have a fiberglass pouch with a lead plate in it that is impregnated with a resin-type sulfuric acid. Same chemical reaction, but there's nowhere for the hydrogen gas to go. It's recombined. It's a sealed cell. They're designed to be able to operate on their side. They're designed to operate in an environment where you don't have ventilation because they don't outgas. For the 6-volt battery, this battery, a pair of these is about $400 installed. For a AGM, a pair of absorbed glass mat in a 6-volt, you're looking at $850 for a pair of batteries installed. Their deep cycle, their duty cycle is around 800, 7 to 800, so that's twice what a flooded cell is, and they'll last 8-10 years easily. Very, very good batteries. They don't need any kind of maintenance other than making sure the top is cleaned off. It's just a matter of put it in there, go worry about something else. Very, very good batteries, a little expensive, but a very good investment. If you trade vehicles quite a bit, you could actually take them with you. We have people that buy coaches every 2 or 3 years, and they take their AGMs with them. They last that long. Very, very good batteries. Any questions on batteries? Everybody's good?
That's usually our big question.
Yeah, well, I think everybody's heard it so many times now that they're tired of it. So,
Okay, that's what,
If we get to where nobody has a battery question, it means we've done our job.
there you go.
Or you have. You do the batteries.
You do it. So I'm pretty much done with talking about batteries. Everybody's kind of glazed eyes, and so I'm going to let you take over for a while.
Well, I'll take over on tank maintenance. Everybody, if you've been here before, you've heard us talk a great deal about Happy Camper. It's preferred at Guaranty. The technician prefer it, I prefer it, and all the customers that start using it, we have never had anybody come back and say they don't like it. It's an active ingredient. You're going to put a scoop in your tank when you dump your tanks. You're going to put a little in the bottom so it mixes itself up. The best thing it does is takes the odor out. I don't know if a lot of you, an RV toilet does not have a P-trap. So when you open that valve, the gases that are in the tank, if there are any in there, you have a little vent on your roof, so it's supposed to naturally gas that direction. But when you open it and you leave it open a little bit too long, you can get a little bit of gas back up through the valve. And if you have an enclosed restroom like mine, my toilet's separate from my shower. Some are all open now. Some restrooms in RVs are bigger than house bathrooms. But you'll get that smell back up through there. You start using this and you won't notice that. Plus what this is going to do is digest everything you're putting in there more than it's already digested. There are certain things, you know what happens in a black tank. There are certain things that go down in there that need a little extra digesting. Number one is the toilet paper. Toilet paper is probably our number one cause of probe malfunction. And when I say probe malfunction, a lot of them are digital now, but your tank sensors. You buy a new unit and it's good for the first 3 months, good for the first 6 months, and about 9 months in, you start noticing that your black tank says it's half full when you know it's empty. Then we get a call because you're still under warranty, and you come down and you talk to Dan, and Dan sits down and tells you, hey, you need to start using some Happy Camper. You need to get these tanks cleaned. And he's going to go over the whole procedure on how to take a bucket, put a little of this in, mix it up, put it in your tank. That's called lubricating your tank. That puts a little slick moisture in the bottom of your tank, so whenever you do what happens in a black tank, it doesn't go down and plop on the bottom. Because it will. It's going to plop down there. The toilet paper is going to maintain its strength until you get something to eat it up. If that toilet paper starts building up in the bottom of that tank, you can get a huge mound in there. A lot of people will say, well, I thought something was wrong because I used to dump once a week. Then is that ringing in my head bothering anyone? And then they would say, and then we noticed we had to dump our tank every 3 days. Well, what's happened is the solids are staying in there. All you're dumping are the liquids. So if you notice you're starting to dump more frequently, especially if you're a full-timer, you know just about exactly how long you've got to go before you dump. So if this stuff gets built up in there, it can be quite expensive for us to try to get it out of there. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes if it's to the point where it's dried out and impacted, we have to take the tank out and install a new tank, which is not one of the cheapest repairs you'll find on an RV, depending on what type you have. If you do come in under warranty and Dan says your tank needs cleaned, and we clean it, of course the warranty company, who you purchased your manufacturer, or through your manufacturer, they're going to deny the claim. They're going to say, well, we're not going to pay for this guy if he's not using something to keep his tanks clean. So then Dan has to call you and say, you owe us some money. And then all of a sudden you're not happy with Dan anymore. And Dan's a nice guy. I don't like that to happen to it. So tank cleaner, very important. Any questions on tank maintenance, or he was first, you're right after?
On the side of my coach, there's a hookup to put water into the tank, and it churns it up and discharges. It's a way to clean it. But you go to many dump stations, and they've cut the end off. There's no way that I can screw it into that female connection. Any suggestion?
Yeah, his question is the tank flush systems, Santa flush systems. The best thing you can do is not use that. Hate to say that. There's a reason they chop those off at the park, because I don't know if you've ever been third in line, and that guy up front has got that hooked on, and they went ahead and went in and made a sandwich, and it takes them about 20 minutes at the dump station. The secret with a dump station at an RV campground is you want to get in and get out. You don't want to be that guy. So if you're fortunate enough to have a dump at home, great. But the problem with those, here we go, I'm going to draw a picture.
He only went to art class because there was girls there.
And home ec. On a Santa flush, they put this little sprayer nozzle that goes in the side of your tank. And then there's usually a plumbing that goes up to the outside of your motorhome where you hook your hose on. The idea is after you dump, you can turn your hose on, and this thing's a little bit bigger than a thumb, and it's probably got 30 or 40 little holes drilled in it. So what happens is you hook the hose to it, and this thing starts squirting out water all over the place. Usually the biggest problem is there's not enough pressure coming out of any one of those holes to actually move anything. And usually what happens is they put your Santa flush over here, but your probes are over here coming through the side of your tank. So usually if anything hits these at all, it's very little. So the best thing to do is dump your tank, close your valve, fill it back up using your foot pedal. Or if mine start getting a little, I've been known to just take a garden hose right in and put it right in my toilet and just power flush. Sometimes you have to do that a couple times. Sometimes what I'll do is if I go to Riverbend or somewhere and I'm only there a couple days, I'll dump before I go. Then when I get there, I'll do 2 days worth of usage. And then before I leave, I'll sit there with the foot flush down, put an extra 5, 6, 7 gallons in it, and then I won't dump at the park. I'll drive with that extra water. I'll put a little extra scoop of Happy Camper, and I'll drive with that all the way across the mountain so that I'm getting all that stuff sloshed up back and forth. It's slamming up against the probes. Then I'll bring it home and dump it. So these are great in theory. They're really just not that good. And if you go on, I think I can say YouTube. It's hard to say what you can say anymore. They shut us off here. But if you go on YouTube, you can look up tank cleaner systems, and you'll look at 85% of them. You can watch them, and they do them in a see-through tank. They're really not efficient, but they're neat to offer when you buy it. And what happens is if you don't use this just about every time, your waste gets up into here. What happens with that little bitty hole is you get little particles of food and waste and poop and toilet paper in the holes. So we get a lot of people that come in and they say, I hook up the hose and nothing goes through anymore. Well, you can pay us $300 to $600 to make it so it makes noise again, or you can just start cleaning your tank the right way. And I know the people that sell these will probably be mad if they see me telling you they're not that great. I had one right back here, and then you're next. Yeah.
You mentioned after you dump it, go ahead and recharge it.
Recharge the tank.
Do recharge it in storage for a month or two?
Yes, I would. Keep whatever, because no matter how good you clean it, you're always going to have little chunks of something in the bottom.
Wouldn't it mostly evaporate?
You're going to have a little evaporation from the roof vent, but if you put 4 or 5 gallons in there, unless you're going to store it for 9 months, you should have a.
Now, after it's been in storage for a month or so, then take a trip, is that enzyme stuff still working, or should it be recharged?
It should be. I would just put another scoop in anyways, especially depending on how long it's been sitting there.
Right.
But yeah, this stuff was designed for actual household use in septic tanks, and they decided it worked so well they actually went over to the RV industry. It's pretty good stuff. Like I say, before this we had, if you go to the shelf over here, you're going to find, just like anywhere, if you go to a used car dealer, you're going to find Chevy, Ford, Subarus. Everybody likes what they like. But, yeah.
Can I step in here for just a second?
Yeah, and then we still got two questions.
Yeah. I was looking at the schedule, and I didn't see anywhere in here where it said Dave was going to be able to talk about poop. He just
snuck
loves
it in.
that conversation, so he worked it right in. You
Snuck
did
it
good.
right in there.
You
Thanks.
did. So what I really wanted to say was the chemical is basically an enzyme. So the way I do it, and it's no big deal, but I have a camp bucket. I fill it up, I put my scoop in there, and I recharge it, what you were talking about. I dump it down there, and then I go home, and it sloshes around, and it may be a few months before I get back to it, but the enzyme in that water is active, unless it's like 20 degrees below zero, and you don't want it in there anyway, but it'll eat any of the organic material, and it'll also eat beta cellulose. Beta cellulose is tissue, paper, toilet paper, things like that. So you leave this stuff in there and it will digest. Even if you're not using the holding tank for a couple of months, it'll do a very good job keeping it clean and eat it up. So I'm sorry, I don't want to take your glory. This is your deal.
Beta cellulose. That's why we always grew up calling it toilet paper. You called it beta cellulose at your house, that excellent. Yes.
How often do you put that in? Every time you dump?
Every time you dump. Every time. If you use, it's not expensive. If one scoop, I don't do it in a bucket because I live in mine. I have to dump often enough. I'm not going to bring buckets in. I fill my bowl up, put a scoop in it, flush it down. I figure the mixing action on the way down the pipe's going to get it mixed up good enough, and I haven't had any problem. What's that? I put it in each tank, yes. It is antibacterial soaps. If you use antibacterial soap, shampoos, anything like that, it does deactivate it. I got one question back here.
New RV owner.
Excellent.
I'm using the foot pedal on the toilet to put some water in my tank after I dumped it, and I want to add that. About how long do you hold your foot down to get,
I don't know, probably 45 seconds. That's probably going to be 2 or 3 gallons. It depends on what you own. If you own a road trek where your black tank's only 10 gallons anyways, you're not going to want to put a whole bunch of water in there. If you have a big fifth wheel or a motor home, 2 or 3 gallons isn't a lot.
okay, so about 45 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll get the feel for it as you're doing it.
So I just don't have any idea how much water is in there.
Right.
Water.
Yeah, 30 to 45 seconds, that should be a couple gallons.
So it's just for the toilet on the
Toilet and black and gray tanks.
and the gray.
Yeah. Gray tanks are worse. Actually, we hate working on gray tanks worse than black tanks sometimes. They stink worse. There's grease and goo in a gray tank you won't find in a black tank. So use it in both tanks. If you do, what's that?
Put it down the shower, or do you put it down the kitchen sink?
If you only have one gray tank, you can put it down wherever it's easy. I have 2 gray tanks, so I do the kitchen and then my shower. If you're taking in medications for cancer, it will kill this also. So they actually have come up with one with people on using antibiotics. If you just insist on using antibiotic hand creams or hand soaps, they have another one over there. It's Happy Camper, but it's designed for that. Any more questions on black tanks, gray tanks, Happy Camper, how to clean them, boy, this is easy crowd. Dan's got his own little thing going over here.
Well, he's a little bit critical of my display.
Oh, because you had it upside down?
Yeah.
I'd have thought you'd have noticed that.
No, I don't. Oh, so are
Hey,
you
then
done
I'm-
with your, oh, okay, you're gonna go now.
Am I good?
No, keep going. I'm sorry.
We're going to go right off into LED bulbs. I love them to a point. There's certain places where in my trailer that I don't like them. My favorite reading light. You'll notice there's a cool white and a bright white and a soft white. Before you go buy all 50 bulbs for replacing your fifth wheel or trailer, go buy one, put it in a light, live with it for a couple days and see which one you prefer. I thought it was the greatest thing, so I went down and bought every bright white light I could find. And yeah, it actually worked. It hurts my eyes. It doesn't still hurt them. I got rid of them. Sold them to a buddy of mine, told him they were great. So depending on where you're at, my little bathroom, my toilet room is in a little enclosed room. So I got a bright white in there, because when I go in there, I like it nice and pretty in there. Reading lights over the kitchen sink, I go with the cool white. They've actually started doing studies now on LED lighting and have found out that if you have too much LED lighting, it will cause you to not sleep. It actually throws off your sleep patterns. So I don't have all LED lights. I still have some regular old incandescent bulb lights in there. That's what I prefer to read by, because it's a yellowish light, looks good on my old used books to buy at the bookstore. So buy 1 or 2, test them. If you dry camp a lot, then you're going to want to change them all over to whichever one you like, because very little electrical usage from these. If you don't dry camp, it's whatever you prefer. Now, the best thing we have, if you have an RV, yesterday it just happened. Where I live, we had a power outage. And I instantly went, oh, man. And then I realized, other than the TV show I was missing, I turned on my water pump and my water heater, and I just dry camped for 4 hours while everybody else in Coburg was out of power. I went and took a shower, had a great time. So if you have an RV, you should always keep a little water in your fresh tank. You'll never be stuck. Any more? Whoop, somebody.
We have an internet question. Wants to know what to do when your black tank freezes.
If it freezes, unfortunately, it should have been empty during the winter. If it freezes and expands to the point where it cracks, then you have to replace it. Usually what happens, if you only have that little bit inside, like I was talking about, that lubrication factor, water has to expand to actually crack stuff. So if you have a little in there, it will not expand enough to break a tank. So if it does freeze, you're going to have to get it somewhere where you can get it thawed out and see if you've ruptured a tank. If you have, that's going to be an ugly fix. And hopefully you don't live here close. Yes, Dan?
I'm not as knowledgeable on the shop side of it, but it seems to me that We see a lot, if it's frozen in the tank, the ABS pipe splits. So that goes before anything else. It's good stuff, but it's really brittle when it freezes and it splits.
It can. Usually the ABS pipe that comes out of the tank will split first. But we've seen it where, we've seen on black tanks where that ABS pipe will split, let the liquid out, a little bit of it, until toilet paper jams in the crack, and then the tank will expand and explode. And then, like I say, you usually don't know it until right after the freeze when it thaws out and your neighbors are wondering why your side yard stinks. And then you haul it down here and talk to Dan, and we usually find out which technician was late for work that morning and give him something fun to do.
You give him one of those and say, congratulations, you won a prize.
Yes, you have. You've won a prize. Yes?
LED lights, do they have dimmer ones? All our ones we have are super bright.
You,
Do they make,
you can put them in a dimmer switch, but they won't work. The dimmer won't, it doesn't like them.
I mean, we have the LED lights. Is there a dimmer LED, not to dim it, just not as bright as they are?
Well, you can buy different,
I think the best way to
watts.
in the most popular bulbs, that one you can see the little rectangular LEDs.
Yep.
They make, yeah, they're little flat things. They make that same bulb with like 6 LEDs, and then they make them with 9 and 12. So the more LEDs you buy on the bulb, the brighter it is. So if you're looking for just a dim, then get a soft white with just a few LEDs in it.
But we do have some of the newer fifth wheels have dimmable lights, and then you put these in and it doesn't like them. They don't like to dim as well.
Our lights are flat.
Yeah, we don't have.
They don't plug in like that.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have the LEDs that are flat.
Pancake.
And they're spade connected, and you can get them with the round ones with like 20 or like with 8.
8.
Yeah.
There's a whole rack over here. You'd be surprised what, I mean, you can buy, I think, 10 or 15 in a pack. Just about any light you want now you can get in LED. I changed my old Ford truck over to the little Ford LEDs and all the lights. Looks cool. Sorry, had to throw that in there. Any more questions?
I just had a suggestion. If you're storing your vehicle and it's cold weather, just get a regular light extension and put a 40-watt bulb or a 60-watt bulb. My dad used to hang it down in the crawl space, and he had the whole, I mean, to tell you, it'd be really warm in the crawl space. I was amazed.
Yeah. Depending,
You can put one in the water bay and just make sure there's enough space around it so you don't get a fire or something.
right.
And it'll just hang there, it'll keep everything nice and toasty.
It can. Unfortunately, on a lot of trailers, they don't have an actual water bay. So, and then depending on where you're parking it, if the wind gets up under it a lot, a light bulb's not going to get enough heat in any one location. But yeah, my dad used to stick those light bulbs all over the place in the winter. Our pump house had a couple in it. So. Anything else? We can go clear back to batteries.
I was going to start off on solar if you're ready and
Yeah,
take a little
I just
break.
wanted to give everybody a chance to
Talk
make
about
sure we get
food.
everybody in. I don't want anybody walking away from here saying they wish they'd asked us something. I knew I had one more.
Comment on the LEDs.
Uh-huh.
You have to pay attention to the Kelvin on those lights, because the lower the Kelvin number, the more yellow the bulb will be. So as the Kelvin number goes up, it gets more and more blue. So you get that cheap college dorm room look going.
Yeah, looks like a discotheque.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I lit up my fifth wheel that first time, that thing was
Blue.
like, yeah, like I say, it was so blue it almost hurt my eyes. Yeah.
So just the Kelvin temperature makes a difference.
Yep. I know you used to build these or something, didn't you? Yeah, I thought you did something with LEDs. I thought we talked about this last year. You just know a lot about them.
I'm very fussy about the color of my light.
So, yep. Okay, now Dan's going to go right into everybody knows how I like to talk about black tanks. Hold on for this.
Yeah, this is my reason for living. I'd like to talk about solar and inverter, kind of goes along with batteries, but as much as he likes talking about poop, I like talking about this stuff. So if I bore you, I'm sorry, just kick me. So one of the biggest misunderstandings in the solar arena is they just are battery chargers. You have solar on your roof or you have portable solar. All solar does is it absorbs the light, makes electricity, and charges your batteries. A lot of people ask me, well, how big a solar panel do I need to run my microwave? Doesn't work that way. The solar panels, we charge them up, we hook them up, they run down and they charge the batteries. They maintain the voltage in the battery. It takes an inverter to then take that 12 volt and step it up to 120. And it's fairly efficient. It's like 90% efficient, so that works really good. We have small inverters, like if you need a sleep apnea machine, we have inverters designed specifically to operate those. We put them back in the bedroom. They draw just enough current to maintain your apnea machine. It takes one good sized solar panel to operate that. It charges it up during the day, batteries are nice and full, and the inverter draws it down overnight. We do all the way up to, in our industry, the rage right now on the big gas motorhomes and the big diesels is a residential refrigerator. A lot of people buy them, that big, beautiful 21 cubic foot, 24 cubic foot fridge, and they get it out in dry camp, and you can't turn the gas on. So they go read their manual and they say, yeah, that's why you have a generator. Well, you don't want to run the generator 24 hours a day. So they come back and we install a large inverter. But the problem is a refrigerator runs at least half the time, and it runs half the time 24 hours a day. So what we have to do is put in sufficient amount of solar so that we can, in the 10 hours of bright sunlight, we can charge the batteries to carry it through the 24 hours. So a gentleman is picking up his Dutch Star today. We put 7 panels on that because he's all electric. And that was, I'm sorry?
How many square feet of panel? About?
Well, let's see. One panel, 160 watt panel is 2 feet by 5, so 10 times 7 is 70. So yeah, that's a lot of.
That's a lot of panels.
That's a lot of panels. Yeah, we fudged it. The charge controller says it can handle 6, but we did the math and we have enough left over, so we did 7. Solar panels, the question is, what's the weight? They don't weigh very much. One solar panel, the 160 watt panel is 26 inches by just over 60. So it's just a little over 2 by 5 feet. It weighs about 12, 15 pounds. So, you know, if you have 6 of them, you know, you're still not up that much weight. You know, a whole array will weigh less than an air conditioner. So solar panels, I'm sorry? Oh, okay. My hearing aid, you hear things. This is a portable, and way back in the beginning, in the early 90s, Arco is the one that developed the solar. They're the ones that really went for it. They did a great job. It's called, the panel was an Arco 45 watt. There were some tests done on it by the government, and at the end of the test, the only thing left after the hail and the rain and all the other tests, the shed was gone, but the panels were still functional. They're very, very durable in a mounted situation. I've done many FMCA rallies, and I worked for years next to the solar rep, and he would take a big panel out, throw it on the ground, and he would walk around. He was a big boy like me, and he'd stand on that panel all day long. They're very tough, but they're like a glass window. If you have portable, you have to be very careful that you don't tweak it, because like a mirror or something, you tweak that mirror a little bit, crack, splits, that thing is done. You don't have to duck down that far, ma'am. You did fine. Anyway, you have to be very careful. They don't like to be flexed. The other thing is portables. If you were to ask the police what the 2 highest theft items are on Craigslist, the number 1 item is a Honda or Yamaha portable generator. The second one is a portable solar panel. So you have to be very careful that people don't pilfer these. The other thing is on solar panels, back in the day when we were first doing this, and this was what Dave was talking about earlier, they were really worried because they were very inefficient. There's 3 primary colors, red, blue, and green. Back in the beginning, we could only do a solar panel on blue, only blue light. And then a few years ago, they figured out how to do green light. Red light is near infrared, so all it's going to do is generate heat. It does not function along the same lines as the blue and the green. So in the last few years, we've pretty much doubled the output of solar panels. But back in the day when we started, we were so worried about the angle of incidence. You want the panel perpendicular to the light coming in. So the poor guy he'd park right in the perfect spot. He'd get up on the roof and he'd aim that sucker, and then he'd have to move it 2 times a day, 3 times a day. And he had nothing else to do. But the problem is we don't want people up on the roof. So as the panels got more and more efficient, we went away from aiming panels, and the last 15 years or so, every panel we've installed has been flat on the deck. It's got about 1.5 inch gap, so because you could cook a meal on one of these. They do get very hot in a day like today. You could boil water, you could fry your eggs and bacon on them. They do a great job. Now we put them down flat on the deck, about 1.5 inches for wind, and we don't have to worry about it, and their efficiency is so good that they just do a very, very good job. So the new panels, they generate 12 volts. They go through a charge controller, because these put out about 18 volts, a little bit too much for the battery. And they have charge controllers so that they don't overcharge. So you don't have to worry about it. I had a guy talk to me the other day, bought a Dutch Star a year ago, and they've been on the road for a year, and we put 6 panels on his, and he has never plugged in a year out and about, because the solar panels charge the batteries power the inverter, everything is electric, and these things work just fine. A lot to be said about it, when you're dry camping, a lot. They do a very good job. One of the things that I like to tell people is this is a very personal issue. If you're interested, you need to find somebody that knows what they're doing with solar and sit down and tell them what your needs are. If you have a smaller trailer and you're only out for a few days and you've only got 2 panels and you just want to run the TV and a few lights, that's a lot different from the guy that's an all-electric that, he wants to spend 10 grand. So the other thing is, these have a 20-year warranty. The 20-year warranty is for product and performance. So let's say you trade in 5 years, you take your panels with you. You take them off, put them on your next coach. They're going to last for a long time. No sense in giving them away. 20 years, they're... Absolutely.
He agrees.
Yeah, he does. Anyway, they will guarantee the performance of that panel to 80% of its original rated capacity, and they will last a very long time. Are there any questions about this? Yes, ma'am.
How do they work during Oregon's winters?
Question is how do they work during Oregon winters? That's a very good question. When I do a solar array, I look at it like, okay, to do what you want to do is going to take X amount. Let's say 150, 160 watts will do fine in perfect weather. So then I say double it, because it's not that much. Once we start, it's not that much more money. That way, on a marginal day, it's like if you're crazy enough and it's 38 degrees out and overcast, and you go out in your swimming suit, you will get a sunburn if you're out there a while, because there is radiation coming through. It may not be visible, but it's still coming through the clouds. And it's the same thing with solar. On poor days, you're still going to get some. So instead of a 160 watt panel putting out, let's say 8, 9 amps an hour, it's going to put out 3 or 4. So if we double it, even in the bad time of the year, you're going to get a satisfactory amount of power to make it through. You're not going to be rolling in power, but you're going to have a sufficient amount. And that's where batteries come into play, because this is just a charge controller, just a charger. You have to have the batteries to hold the power to get you through the night. So it depends on how you camp, what you want to use, and your whole system. So it's a very personal thing. That answer? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'm putting them to sleep. It's all yours.
Then I'll go over a couple, just to make sure we don't have any questions. Slide toppers. Does everybody know what a slide topper is? Have any questions about them?
This lady right here had a question. She nailed me right off the bat.
Oh, great. So you couldn't answer it, now you're going to make...
Yes, I am.
Okay, here we go.
I love you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, she was saying they were up in Idaho last winter, and they were watching other people wrap their rooms to keep the heat in. Her experience has been, it can be like 65, 75 degrees in the coach. They run the room out, and they can just watch the temperature fall. Is there anything to seal the room, to insulate the room, that you're aware of? The slide toppers will cut down a little bit of the wind and that, but they're not going to really do that much.
Nothing I can think of.
Yeah, she got me too.
I know that when you open them up, of course, you have another 20% more square footage you have to heat. So you'll burn more propane if you're going to store it. Some people store it with the rooms in, with the little furnace on, because you have actual less square footage to heat. But wrapping, I've never seen anybody wrap a room. But hey, you see new stuff all the time.
Yeah, we were in Idaho, stopped at this little place in the mountains that had full-time capability, and they had constructed sheds to keep the snow off the roofs.
Yeah, I've seen them pull them under sheds.
And they had 4 inches of rigid foam.
Really?
On
Huh.
the roofs and on the sides.
Never seen it.
Live full time in one.
Maybe it's just an Idaho thing. You know how people in Idaho are. Watch my internet just from everybody from Idaho.
Well, it gets really hot in Arizona.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's the same.
That's why you're best just to stay right here in the Great Willamette Valley. I can guarantee it'll be hot in the summer and cold in the winter, but it's always nice here.
Cold and wet.
Slide
So,
toppers
yeah.
still ameliorate that problem.
Slide toppers mainly are, the only reason for a slide topper is for debris. To keep squirrel poop, bird poop, worked it in again, off the top of the slide rooms. We get people that come in and say, oh, my slide room's leaking water. Put a slide topper on that so it'll fix that. They're not for water. They're strictly for, we'll tell them, we'll be happy to charge you $300 and whatever dollars it is, put you a slide topper on because they're great to have, but we're not going to guarantee this is going to fix your leak. So, yeah.
If you have slide toppers, how critical is it to make sure there's no leaves or twigs on it before you retract your...
A good slide topper should clean itself going out, unless you're, somebody was telling me they were somewhere and these trees were dropping these little gooey clusters of something, then those won't fall off when it rolls under. But no, it should. But if you're going to wash it, it's always good to get up on a ladder and keep the dust and dirt off the top, just like you would clean them just like you would your roof. Any more questions about slide toppers? We kind of went past Max Air covers, fantastic fans. Everybody knows that if you put those nice little covers, where were they?
They just have
Oh. Max Air covers to put over your vents so that when you're driving you can actually put a little air. If it's, a lot of times in Oregon especially, it can be 70 degrees outside in a rainstorm. You don't want to be out in the rain, but it's a little stuffy in the trailer. You can go open one vent here and one vent here and get some cross circulation going. Keeps the water from pouring in. They're good. They're just an add-on. But yeah.
On mine,
Picture time.
on the slide outs, there's this type of a dog up there.
Yep.
And I don't know what it is for and how to activate it.
You don't. All that is his question is he's showing me some pictures of what we call a billow. It's an anti-billow. What there is on a slide topper towards usually the forward end is forward or rear is a little arm that sticks up in the air, has a little rubber boot on it. When you're driving down the Columbia Gorge doing 60 and they've got a 50-mile-an-hour cross breeze going that they can get through there sometimes, yep, that's it. If the wind should get underneath that slide topper and try to billow it, meaning pull it open like a parachute, this little arm contacts this little thing on the side of the motorhome so it can't do that. And I've seen a lot of other companies in town or in this area, they don't do that final step. They think it's 10 minutes and they think it's wasted time. And then what happens is you bring it in about a year and we put a new awning on for you because it billowed. If you're going to go in and have an awning topper or a slide topper put on, make sure the little billow arm is on the front. It's in the box, it's there for a reason.
There's none on the back slide out.
What's that?
There is none on the,
Depending on the length. Some of them, if they're shorter, you couldn't get enough wind underneath them to get them to billow.
so I don't have to activate anything.
You don't do nothing. It activates itself if needed.
Good.
Any more questions on slide toppers? How about main awnings? This is an easy crowd.
Yeah.
I think you put them to sleep with your...
Yeah, I'm sure I did.
Yeah.
I did a roof seminar and you talked about the air vent covers to protect the sealant around those.
Well, it keeps the sun off the sealant on the vents because there's a lip on the Max Air covers have a lip around them that kind of sets over top of the sealant, so it keeps the UV rays off that sealant. Just helps. Every little bit helps. Okay, what are you moving on to?
Well, I'd like
Way
to talk.
bars?
I can do that now.
Whatever you want.
So one of, after solar and inverter and that, my next passion is suspension. A lot of people don't realize when they buy a motorhome, the chassis manufacturer builds a motorhome, and like in the day, when I was first trying to understand all of this, I researched it in the Ford F-53 chassis with the Class A chassis. A Ford shock absorber cost Ford $16. They don't put any money in their shocks. They're a very soft ride, Monroe shock. They're designed to last no more than 10 to 12,000 miles because that's 1 year. And people ask, well, why don't they put more money into that? Well, because they're hitting at a price point in the market, and the manufacturers of the chassis, Workhorse, Ford, Freightliner, not so much, but the gas motor people, they don't put a lot of money in suspension. But there's a huge aftermarket industry fixing these things. And a lot of people don't realize, you buy a motorhome, a lot of people say, well, you know, this is what it is, you know, and it's going to ruin my day, but I got to drive 500 miles. We can fix all of these issues with motorhomes. There is a very thriving market in pick your chassis, pick your problem. There is some really good stuff out there. So there's several things going on, mostly in the gas motorhomes. The diesels, they've done a much better job addressing, because they are such a heavy vehicle, they have addressed a lot of the issues. So we don't see as much of an issue with the diesels. Gas motorhomes, on the other hand, huge issues, and you don't have to live with it. And you don't have to take a second mortgage out to pay for it either. So one of the biggest problems, people drive down the road and they hit a chuck hole, there's a groove in the road, semi goes by, wind, and man, they're just working that steering wheel. One of the items that we highly recommend is what's called a steering dampener. And what it does is absorb all of that noise coming up from the wheels. And it's the mechanical advantage is such that if you had a 600-pound force against the tire, that equates to about 3 to 4 pounds on the steering wheel. So instead of having to grip that thing white knuckle with both hands, you can actually drive with 2 or 3 fingers. Steering dampener. Another thing, steering dampener. Another thing, and this, again, this is like solar. You find somebody that knows what they're doing, you have them take you on a test drive and point out what's going on. Along with the steering dampener is if you're driving down the road and mama walks to the back and she wants to lay down, she gets back there and the back of that coach is going just like this. What's happening is that rear differential is drifting underneath the box because the spring stack is actually flexing. So they have, in diesel pushers, they install a panhard bar because they recognize this to be a huge issue because you have such a heavy engine back there. A panhard bar bolts to the frame and comes over and bolts to the differential. And the way it does it, it's horizontal pretty much so that as you go up and down, it isn't moving the differential. It holds that differential dead center underneath the box. So you put a rear track bar or a rear panhard bar on, and mama goes back and wants to lay down. Now the coach is just straight and narrow, and you're not going down the road, all of a sudden the coach is over here or over here, and you're not constantly correcting. Another issue that we have with motorhomes is they tend to sway quite a bit. They're about as far from a Corvette as you can get. Now, this is an issue with diesels as well as gas motorhomes. In gas motorhomes, we put sway bars on them. On the Class C's, the big ones in the front, and the Class A's, the main issue is in the rear. But there are large aftermarket sway bars that have neoprene bushings that if you walk down your coach and the last little bit is wiggling like this, that's the sway bar neoprene, non-neoprene rubber bushings are all really soft and worn out, so there's nothing holding it. You put neoprene bushings on it, now that they're rigid tight all the way. On diesel motorhomes, we have the same problem, but they have airbags. And you go around the corner, the suspension has a ride control right in the middle, and you got 2 airbags. So you go around the corner, and the ride control doesn't change, but you're leaning over, and the air goes from this bag, squirts over into this bag. So the height's the same, but it's not doing anything to stop this side-to-side sway. So a company came up with a really neat idea. They're just little valves, air valves, and they put these air valves next to the airbag suspension. And what they do is, if you tip, all of a sudden you have a huge amount of pressure, and it stops that air from gushing out, going to the other bag. So when you put these ride controls on and you go around a corner, wow, I'm not tipping. And they work really, really well. That's usually the one thing that we see is a big problem on the diesel pushers. On the gas motor homes, you can have a rear track bar, you can have a front track bar, you can have sway bars, you can have a steering dampener. It goes on and on. And the last thing is shock absorbers. Now, he told me not to talk about tires, so I'm not going to, but the shock absorbers are really cheap. If you have a Class A or a diesel pusher, it's been my experience that Coney is the best. They make very good double-acting shock absorbers, and they're nitrogen, so they don't overheat, they don't foam up the oil. They do very well. On the Class C, Class C's, Bilsteins work very well. You don't need quite as much of a shock. Some of the older motorhomes, people would double shock them, and they would put on air shocks or coil over shocks, and they'd rip the shock towers off. The shocks are not designed to carry a load. They're only designed to absorb shock. So a combination of one or all of these things, you can turn any motorhome into a Corvette. They do a good job. Any questions on this? Okay. Coney, K-O-N-I. If you have a Class A or a diesel, Coney is the one. That is the best shock out there. There's more expensive, but that's the best. Slide trays?
Now that you got your display right side up, or are you gonna?
Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is tow packages. I don't know if anybody here has any interest or questions, but if you have a motorhome and you want to tow a dinghy, there's not a lot of choices for towed vehicles anymore, and I will tell you why. In the front-wheel drive, the drive units, when you're towing it, are turning. And most manufacturers, the way they build their transaxles or their transmissions, the transmission is lubed internally in the front of the transmission, which means the engine has to be running to lube the transmission. A few manufacturers, for whatever reason, have an auxiliary lube pump. It's just a mechanical pickup pump. If the output shaft is turning, this auxiliary lube pump is turning. So those people that build their transmission like that, those transmissions are towable. If for some reason you've got to have this one specific Ford half-ton pickup and it is not towable, and you need it to put your Harley in the back of the truck, we can do that. There are what they call lube pumps and driveline disconnects to accommodate most other vehicles. The vehicles that will not be towed, that need a flatbed or a cargo trailer, are the Mercedes, the Beamers, a lot of the exotics. We don't do Infinities and things like that. Don't do too many Nissans or Toyotas. We're really limited every year, more and more, to what can be towed. And so if you get down to it, you got to find somebody that knows what they're doing. And see, number one, if you haven't bought the vehicle, make sure that before you buy it, you read the owner's manual in recreational towing whether that vehicle is towable or not. Once you buy it, if it's not towable, anyway, you get that.
And sometimes car salesmen won't tell you the truth.
I know that's a shock, but
Really?
and I don't know if it's that they're not telling you the truth. They don't know. They don't know themselves. So they're gonna just about everything you point at, they're gonna say, "Sure, you can tow that." Well, their version of tow and yours is two different things. They may think you're going to put it on a trailer or put it on a dolly, or we call it flat towing, meaning all 4 tires on the ground. The owner's manual of the vehicle should say what you have to do to tow with that unit.
The owner's manual under towing, under recreational towing, will tell you whether that vehicle is towable, and then it'll tell you how it can be towed. It may tell you it has to be on a tow dolly or a flatbed, but it'll tell you whether your owner's manual is the definitive one to go to. So the last thing I want to talk about is a braking system. This is an evolution that has pretty much come home. 15, 20 years ago, when we were first doing this, people would say, well, yeah, I think you can, I don't know, whatever. But now it's morphed into, you're going down the road, and your tow vehicle, for whatever reason, becomes disconnected, and it rolls across the median and hits a van full of nuns and orphans, and they own you. So the laws now, pretty much in every state, except for Oregon, maybe Missouri, because they haven't shown us yet.
They're like Idaho. You never know what's going on.
So anyway, you're going down a road, you're towing any kind of a trailer. Could be a boat, could be a horse trailer, cargo trailer, a flatbed, a utility trailer, an RV, a towed vehicle. It has to be able to stop under its own power if it becomes disconnected from the tow vehicle. So you're going down the road and your hitch breaks and your trailer rolls off into the ditch. There's a lanyard that connects to a breakaway that triggers the electric brakes, so that before it hits the ditch and goes into the neighbor's house, it stops, puts the brakes on, locks the brakes up, and it comes to a screeching halt. Same has to happen if you go to California. I think the tickets right now is about $850. You have to be able to demonstrate your vehicle has that towed brake. So this is a towed brake. Towed brakes, if you don't want to put your wife in the towed vehicle and tell her to put on the brakes if the car breaks down, you put one of these in there, and they're so sophisticated these days that they sense inertia and they will apply brake. They don't put a lot of pressure on the brake pedal because they maintain the vacuum and the vacuum boost. So it's a very gentle brake, but it is tied into inertia. It will automatically stop your car. The towed doesn't want to be more aggressive than the motorhome, and they are regulated that way. And if it becomes separated, it goes to maximum braking, and it won't move until you put that lanyard back in. And they really do a good job. There are right now probably a dozen different brakes out there. We sell them all, and I would have to say that the last few years, 99% of what we sell is made by SMI. This is for diesels, the Air Force One. Diesels have a different kind of braking system, and this system you don't want to tie into like some of the brands do. You have an air canister that all 4 brakes bleed off of, but you tie into that and your little airline brakes gets ripped off. If you lose air pressure, that means your vehicle comes to a screech and a halt. It will not move, and that's kind of a safety thing. And Freightliner and Spartan don't want towed brakes contaminating their distribution canister. So this particular unit has its own compressor and reservoir pump, and it just takes its inertia and communicates that to the towed vehicle. There are some that still tie into the air systems, but Freightliner and Spartan will have kittens. They don't like that at all. We have also an SMI for gas motors, and it works on a principle of a cable, and it takes its power from a charge line, and it doesn't contaminate anything, and they do a very, very good job. We do SMI because it's been such a reliable, very simple thing. All you do is turn it on. And if you forget and leave it on for 3 months, oh well, it's not going to hurt anything. Any questions about towing?
That's strictly for flat toe.
Yes,
No tow dolly.
No, you don't need one, as the tow dolly will have brakes. The thing should, yeah, in the last 5, 6, 7 years, the industry has gone away from non-brake tow dollies because you got to have brakes. And there's two types. You've got the electrics, which means they're less money than the surge brake, but then you have to put in a brake control. But you've got to have, it's a trailer, it's got to have a brake. Now you get back east, in the very East Coast New England states, they're kind of different in several ways, but they not only have to have, on the tow dolly out here we have the lights on the tow dolly, but back there they also have, you wire the car so that the towed vehicle and the tow dolly both have brakes. And I believe that Vermont and one other state also require brakes on the towed vehicle. So just stay away from those guys. Don't go there.
The further you go east, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
Starts right about Idaho, and then it
just out of Wyoming, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then you can start smelling the swamp about, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know I'm going to get a bunch of Idaho comments on this one. I can see it.
Yeah. He just happens to know that I grew up in Idaho, so.
Oh, well, I didn't really.
Really?
But
No.
that explains it.
Yeah. Yeah, I learned my RVing from an old man in Moscow, Idaho.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there. Actually, a very nice place.
It is.
Except they wrap their rooms.
Yeah, I got to see that.
Anybody have any other questions about anything we may have been over, or even a couple quick ones that we didn't have a huge crowd today, so it went a little faster than normal? Anything you have a question about that's not even on our little piece of paper there?
Surge protectors.
Yeah, we can go over those quick. Surge protector. We're not going to give you Dan's. This is another one of those where Dan can go on a little rant.
Yeah, you can handle this one.
Surge protector. Different sizes, shapes. Of course, dollars also. You can have some that are built in, some plugged in line. We're not going to get into our normal banter today, but they're well worth the money spent. It's kind of a gamble using them. We agree on that. It's a gamble. It may be cheaper in the long run to let your insurance pay your deductible and let your insurance fix everything that blows up. However, if it's going to happen, it's usually going to happen when you're on vacation. Well, then what's happened is your vacation has stopped, because vacations usually happen in busy season, and you're going to be parking that somewhere and waiting until that dealer can get to your unit, get the parts for your unit, and get your unit back to you. So something like that could put you down for a week to 4 weeks. So it's kind of just a peace of mind is what it is. And depending on your unit, you would get with somebody like Dan or myself, and we will sell you what you need, not what we want to sell you. That's why he mentioned with satellites, it's personal. You can go to a different place, and hopefully they're reputable enough, they're not going to put 35 solar panels on your roof. If they don't ask you what you do, why you think you need solar panels, then just turn around and go somewhere else. Because we've had people come in and say, I want 6 or 8 solar panels. What are you going to do? Oh, probably nothing. I just want to make sure when it's parked next to my garage that my batteries stay charged for when I want to use it. Well, you don't need 6 or 8 panels for that. So yeah, extension cord or... Any other questions? I hope I answered that good.
level does that have to be at different places in the trailer?
Yeah, I wish the manufacturers that built these actually forced the employees to walk around with those little bubble levels. Because the guy putting the kitchen counter in is going to be way off than the guy putting the bathroom sink in. So the best thing to do with that is get 2 spots in your trailer that you feel are great, and don't use those little bubble levels. It takes so much to move that little level. Get you a nice little 24-inch contractor's level, and put that in your entryway floor, somewhere where you're walking. Where you're going to notice to unlevel the most is in your ear, which is usually where you're walking from one end to the other. A person can know it. In 30 feet, a person can feel 1 inch. I mean, you feel it. I always tell everybody, I know when my trailer is not level, because when my wife cracks an egg in the fry pan and it flies off to one side, within about 2 minutes, I'm out there re-leveling. So get a bubble level, put it front to rear, left to right. Do the cupboards. Our bathroom door. We have a bathroom door that has a sweet spot, and I can guarantee you I got that trailer, that fifth wheel, just almost perfect when that door does what my wife wants. But yeah, those little bubble levels they're a little hard to read.
I know we can discuss for a half hour after we pull in what's level.
So
Sometimes I wonder how level do you really have to be?
it's all to your preference. They want you as level as possible for your refrigerator, but level is just mainly for your comfort. I always level, but I run the head of my bed up just a hair. I like to sleep level, but I don't want to be a little low towards the head, because that'll give you a headache when you're sleeping. Just that little bit, your body doesn't like having to pump that blood up the other direction. Back to Dan.
I'm sorry. I just want to go a little bit further into your question about these. There are a couple different types of surge protectors. A surge protector is designed to absorb high voltage electricity for the few nanoseconds while it is melting down. It is designed to fail. It will melt. That if it's all melted up, you know you've had a voltage issue. This is about a $100 bill, and the reason is it doesn't have very much capacity to absorb electricity. So some drunk hits the power pole and knocks out the transformer, and you got 11,000 volts coming down the line to your coach. If you have a cheap one, that 11,000 volts will hit this, and while it's melting and failing, 2/3 of that electricity is going to go through and mess up your microwave, your TV, your converter, your laptop, everything you got plugged in, your air conditioner. The better ones that are around $400, the joule rating on them is about 3 times as much, and that joule rating is how much electricity can this absorb. The really good ones will absorb all of that power in the nanoseconds this thing is melting down. If you're if you have a little tent trailer, this is fine, because all you're going to do is protect a couple minor things. But if you have a bigger coach that's got a microwave, an air conditioner, refrigerator, all of those things, if you're going to buy one, you need to buy the best one you can, the one with the most joules in it, so that all of the damage is in this. The manufacturers tell you, if you buy this, thank you very much, hold on to the box. If you have a failure, put it back in the box, send it back to the manufacturer, and they will repair or replace it for free as part of the warranty. If you don't have your box, have a nice day. So if you do buy one, buy the best one you can and save the box.
And we see this 5 or 6
Times a year. And everybody says, well, that's not bad, but we're only one dealership in the United States. Another thing you don't want to, what's that?
There aren't a lot of lightning storms.
Yeah, there's not. But what we get around here are a lot of power spikes and And what we hear a lot more of, people come in with nothing working, and the first words out of their mouth were, I stopped off at my buddy's house and we plugged in. Well, his buddy looked at the end of that 50 amp short cord and noticed it looked just like the plug-in for his welder. So he ran it into his garage and plugged it into that 240 volts. It's a different phase. There's a difference in phases of electricity. I'm not going to get all deep into phases, so you don't have to correct me on this. Just make sure it's an RV outlet, not your buddy's dryer outlet or welder outlet. It will burn stuff up. Yes?
I was last year down in California now, it's 100 degrees in an RV park. There was a surge during the day. Actually, this happened several times and it started really concerning. I, on those particular days, happened to be gone for the day. I left my cats in the trailer, believing the AC was going to work all day. The spike happened, but apparently those things don't allow everything to then come back on. You need to physically be there to turn the AC back on again.
Right.
Right? So I came home to a really hot trailer with these animals in it. Is there any solution to that? Is there any device that will then turn things back on?
No, not really. The question is, she experienced a spike and it shut everything down. They do not automatically restart. If they don't fail, it's just, it's the nature of the beast. And you're talking about a very large amount of current. And I think that it would be very expensive to make something intelligent enough to be able to reset itself after it went through something like that. I know what you're saying. I've never heard of anything out there that will do that. It's well, you're lucky you didn't lose everything, kind of thing. It's
that adds what we should invent. We should invent one of those that when it goes off, it alerts your phone so that your animals
there you
are
go.
safe.
Yeah.
If you guys see me hanging out with the rich people next year, I'm going to invent that.
Very
Me
good.
and Elon Musk be cruising around.
My understanding, the way you explained it to me before, is this is a fuse.
Right.
So you no longer are plugged into the power.
Yeah, once it burns it, it's done.
So you
But
have to-
again, her point is, what if you have dogs or
so you
cats
have to,
or
I love that
yeah.
idea, but you have to physically plug your rig back into the power.
Well, you'd have to take that out of the circuit and plug it in, yeah. Yes.
Ballpark, if that happened, how much does it cost?
Buy another one.
Well,
Compared to what these things cost.
it's not my fault.
I didn't hear it.
I didn't ask this
Oh,
question.
did you get Dan started?
Yes,
Okay.
he did. So he said, how much does it cost? So here we go.
Here we go.
For years, it was my contention, it's like gambling. If you go somewhere and you're on a trip and you're having a great time and all of a sudden, boom, you get fried. It takes out your air conditioner, your microwave, your TV, your converter. My contention was, well, you have a deductible and it's under your comprehensive insurance for your vehicle. And whatever, let's say you've got a $500 deductible or a $1,000 deductible, that's what the repair is going to cost. We're very good at this because we do this too often. You bring it in and we do an estimate and we replace all this stuff and insurance company pays everything, but now the thing that won me over was, yeah, that's going to take a month and because it's the busy time of the year, and what are you going to do for a month that ruined your vacation? If you bought a $500 surge protector, it's no more money than the insurance, but it's fried, it's gone, but you get to keep moving on your vacation. And that's so after years, I gave in. I said, Dave, that's why they pay him more than me.
Well,
He was right.
Plus, I have one of those insurance companies that always tells me, oh, no, if you have a little wreck, we're not going to raise your premiums.
like hell or not.
Every time I dinged my door, my premiums went up. So,
He's for him also.
I'm sorry?
He's for him also.
Yes, yeah, he's the guy that's for him. I was the guy that says, you know, do you like to gamble? Don't worry about it, you know, because it doesn't happen if when I was a service writer, if I got 1 or 2 a year, and how many do I do a year when I was a service writer? 500? You know, it wasn't a very big, the probability was pretty low. But then he pointed out, well, it does.
it has to happen to somebody, and I'm that guy that if it's going to happen to somebody, it's going to be me.
Oh.
So it's better to have it and not need it.
Yeah.
Than need it and not have it.
Yes, sir.
I have a $4,400 story to tell you about this past winter.
Okay.
I had my inline plugged to the post, like you were just holding.
Yeah.
And then I had my used auto former,
Yeah.
and it took that out, took the former out, it took the line out, and it went inside the refrigerator, the inverter, and everything. It was a huge surge it went through. It came from that 72-mile-an-hour storm we had, winds, and I was sitting there watching TV, and it went out, and I usually get up and turn the power off, the main breaker.
Yeah.
But it came back on, so I go, okay, we're good. And then it went boom, 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 and it hit, and it did all that damage. So I called the RV repair, and they told me how much it's going to be. I said, well, shit. So I called, he said, have you called your insurance? I said, no. He said, they might pay for it. So I called them. I got Foremost Insurance, fantastic. I only talked to the adjuster one time. He dealt with the repair shop, and they paid for everything, including they bought the inline. I told them I was going to buy that inline one. I love it. And
it's sampling.
evaluating,
Yeah, it's sampling.
and it'll also, if it's got overpower, it'll shut off. If it's got less power, it'll shut off.
So what did you do with did you replace your Hughes auto former?
Yeah, they paid for that. They paid for I told them I'd buy that myself for $700 and install it. They paid for everything.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, you guys, I'm going to tell the story when I have a chance.
Well, he's got an auto former he's been trying to sell me forever, and I just was, trying to help him
I
out.
finally threw it in the garbage.
Oh, okay.
I scrapped
Never
it.
mind.
Yeah, it even took out the refrigerator coil.
Wow,
Yeah,
that must have been,
The microwave with the TV, because in line before that is it took out the outlet, the GFCI, fried it. So,
that must have been one hell of a,
You're gonna,
that was a hit.
So apparently it's not me. It happens to you then too. So, yeah, electricity's crazy stuff, and you're gonna get 1 out of 1,000 that are gonna be so hot that stuff isn't gonna stop it. If you get that electricity that'll travel through a tree, I mean it'll go around that thing if it has to.
So we don't know where it was. What caused a tree fall over a transformer maybe?
Yeah.
It's pretty high.
That's something. Huh. Interesting. Any other questions?
Okay, we're gonna wrap this thing up.
Okay.
Dan, thanks for all your knowledge.
Well, thank you for all your
He's the
experience.
smart one, I'm the looks. So, thank you.
Thank you guys very much. I think that's one for the record books.
Yeah.